Hello, BookTube. I'm here to talk about the Saga of the Volsungs for Sagalong 2024. And this was the choice for the read this year. It's a very slim saga, and it was probably put down in writing the beginning or sometime during the first half or so, or first three quarters, I guess, of the 12th century, so the 1200s AD. And it's, as most of these sagas are, it's a saga of a family, the Volsungs. And as usual, the king lineage and the lineage here is sort of, they try to bring in, the gods. So Odin is the sort of uh, precursor or the beginning of the Volsungs, and it goes further than that. There's a sword from him, and even the descendant of Odin's horse becomes a horse in the story as well. And it's mainly, or part of it is about Sigurd and the Dragon Slayer, and it goes through. It's at times it seems to almost read like a shopping list. It's like so and so did this, begat whatever. Not using the word begat, but you get what I mean. It's just a listing of deeds that were done and fights that were done. And the biggest is him slaying the dragon. As you can see here, it's like a serpent, but a dragon, and he actually speaks to it as the dragon is dying when he puts his sword in. There's a special sword that he uses as well, not the one from Odin, but one that was forged and reforged, and it ultimately was able to cleave an anvil in half. And so he kills the serpent slash dragon with this, and he drinks some of its blood, and he gets stronger. And it's in myth, and he roasts and eats its heart, and he's able to commute, or at least listen to the words of the birds. He understands the birds. And the serpent slash dragon had huge gold hoard as well, and there's swords there, and also a ring, a magical ring. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? But yeah, and it goes through, and him sort of forging a kingdom basically, with taking over other parts, and fighting together, or fighting together and against each other to sort of forge a kingdom, and alliances. The alliances go all over the place, and sometimes I got confused at who was backbiting who, and because of the names, it was difficult at times for me to figure out who the females were, men and women, and then you sort of find out, oh, he marries who I thought might have been a man, but it was a woman. And there's the children, so then I know it's a woman, but there's times where a woman dons armor and goes out and fights alongside the men, and actually leads an army. So it's very egalitarian, I guess you would say, as well as that. And it just goes through the whole history of the Volsungs, and that's the usual thing for this. But it's been used for so many times, like for other things. William Morris wrote his own from it, and like the uh, J.R.R. Tolkien used it for Lord of the Rings, as well as I'm assuming for The Hobbit too, with Smaug, I think it is, and his hoard of gold. And there was a little, I'll get to that in a moment, of how Smaug dies, which isn't directly from here, I don't think, but he's borrowed it from something else. And it's a really good introduction in here. This was translated by, Let's see here. Translated introduction, notes, and glossary by Jesse L. Bylock. And what's happened to the lighting there? Wow, that was weird. Jesse L. Bylock, and it's really good introduction. And it's basically, like I say, it was put down in the 1200s into writing, but it has a longer history of that, and people have been trying to fit it in historically when this was all happening, and it looks like it's probably the middle of the first millennium of AD, around 400 or so, where the Roman Empire was waning, and over 100 years we've got others moving in, like the Huns, the Goths, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, Germanic tribes, the Franks, the Burgundians, et al. Just all sort of coming in and vying for power and leadership. And this was sort of the milieu of the time, and this is where a lot of this is pulled from. But it's not just pulled from sort of the history, because there's events that historians and scholars have been trying to figure out. Okay, who is this supposed to be? Like, there's a character that they think is supposed to be Attila the Hun, even though he probably wasn't around at that time exactly there. But also too, there's the Burgundians, the Franks, the Goths, all these groups. But it's like, something they made up in an historical event in 410 AD, say, for instance. I'm just pulling out numbers here, and then another one in like 510. But in this story, they are meshed together and happening at the same time with other leaders happening. And the Volsung saga is pulled, like the stories are pulled from either also older poems, the Edda, older Icelandic poems, like bits and pieces, and put together and created this. And then shortly after that as well, there's the German Nibelungen poem. I think it's a poem, and it's instead of Sigurd and the dragon, it's Siegfried, as in Wagner's Ring Cycle. And it's got a lot of a similar story to this, but it would have pulled some from here, but it would have also went back and pulled material from the Edda, the older poems, all sorts of stuff, and even from probably I think it mentions that there might have been stuff from Beowulf as well, like little bits and pieces that were put together. And as I say, it's been shaped and reshaped throughout the centuries, and everybody has taken it, or a lot of people have taken it and reshaped it yet again. Like Tolkien did, he took it and reshaped for his benefit, and William Morris has, and Wagner used some of the Nibelungen storyline from that poem for his Ring Cycle, but he's taken stuff like the Valkyries and other things that are directly lifted from the Volsungs saga, or the Saga of the Volsungs, as well as other Edda stories, and puts it all together. And then later, we get in the 1920s, we get the German filmmaker Fritz Lang, well, actually Austrian, but anyway, from 1924, Die Nibelungen. Here's a Blu-ray of it. It's a 5-hour epic in 2 parts, and this isn't so much based on the Saga of the Volsungs. It's really based on Die Nibelungen, or the Nibelungen, the German one, because it is Siegfried is the character, and what happens is when he kills the serpent / dragon, he bathes in the blood, but what happens, and I'm talking about the movie because I'm assuming they've lifted it directly. Him, Fritz Lang and his wife Thea von Harbo lifted it directly from the Nibelungen poem, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, in the film, he gets like an Achilles heel because there's one spot that's not, his body isn't covered by the blood that makes him basically immortal or impervious to being attacked or harmed. Is a leaf falls on his shoulder, and it's the one spot where the blood didn't get. So that's his Achilles heel, and it became known, and he gets a spear through himself. And I'll use the thumbnail is that scene from the film, but as a movie poster. And there's the scene where he's falling back like this, and he's transfixed. It's a spear that comes right through from the back. So yeah, so there's lots and lots of stuff that's been done from it. I really like the way it ended here, with Wyatt Earp. The last paragraph is about Wyatt Earp and his brothers and the fight at the OK Corral. I might be exaggerating there a bit, but I'll explain this because it makes me. It made me think at the time because there's one character called Earp, ERP. It's in the very last like the very last chapter, so it's very short. It's very short, but it's talks about Earp. It says they met their brother Earp, ERP, not EARP. But all I could think of was Wyatt Earp, the OK Corral with the Clantons. Then I started thinking a little further, and I'm going, well, a lot of this is based on some kind of historical background, but misremembered history and morphed into something else. Well, what is the OK Corral? It is a fight. Like there's blood feuds in here, like in the sagas. It becomes a myth. The OK Corral. It's been written about and mythologized, and it becomes a blood feud, like in here, and it's between families. That's how it's done. So that kind of thing of how the sagas and stories get told, even though this is 1,000 years old and more, it's still happening. It's still where it happened in the Wild West with OK Corral, and I thought that was kind of neat. It's just because the character one is Earp, yeah, it's not Wyatt Earp. And the other thing I was going to say was where Siegfried in the film version here with the leaf that it creates a Achilles heel. Isn't that how Smog is killed? Because there's one chink in his armor, or one of the scales have fallen off, and that's the place that can be pierced and he can be killed. So that's probably where he got it from, but it's not in here. Like he does get Sigurd gets killed with a sword through his back. But yeah, but like I say, but there's a lot more. There's magic. There's supernatural elements to this. There's infanticide. You name it. Incestuous relationships. It's got it all. And as I say, at times it's dry because it's like I say, it's sometimes hard to follow the machinations of the alliances and everything, because it is just like a list of things that happen to a certain extent. And I can't remember who was, like, we have a Voxer group, and somebody had mentioned that in their reading, they had found that the author was saying that like when it got written down, it was just the basics. This is the basic story that people would remember, and the person telling the story is the one that fleshes out the story and makes it bigger. So this is just sort of the shopping list of things that happen, and then the person who's telling it creates atmosphere, character development, and all this kind of stuff, which kind of makes sense. But it does make, in some ways, a bit dry reading. But it's just amazing that we do have this still extent that we can actually read it. And like I say, the scholars have been arguing at the historical events, but a lot of it, and the order of how it got created and everything like this, there's a lot of speculation involved with this. But it is an interesting thought process, or at least I find it interesting to do that. And any little chapter, like some of the chapters are a few pages long, others are really short, but any one chapter can be fleshed out to a massive novel, and I'm sure it has. Like, I'm not a big fantasy reader, but I'm sure somebody has come along and found one of these chapters in here and has written 1,000-page fantasy novel based on this and just fleshed it out, like the storytellers would have at the time. Probably not to 1,000-page worth, but hopefully not. But yeah, it's that kind of thing, and it's just kept. And one of the things that in the introduction here it says that has made it sort of survive through the Christianity and everything was him slaying the dragon, and that was the one thing that's popular. That's what this sort of is really remembered for. It's the slaying of the dragon. Anyway, yeah, and if you've read this, what do you think? What did you think of it? And I will list all my Sagalong cohorts down below in the description. And I'll see you next time, BookTube. Thank you.